What is up, Ann Brothers? We're live.
It is. We're here. I'm here. Yes.
And I'd like you to notice that I'm wearing a hoodie today. You want to know why?
Oh, because it's not 100 degrees in Wisconsin today?
It's not. It's in Dresser, Wisconsin today. I don't believe we've broken 65 degrees. I think it's about 62 degrees right now, and it's delightful. It's cloudy and it's cool, and I'm going to soak this up because it's going to be 1,000 degrees day after tomorrow. So I'm going to love this right now. So also, and I forgot I was going to show you this. This is what I did today. I got new glasses.
Nice. Very nice. I like those.
Yeah.
That makes you look really smart. Smarter.
Smarten it up. So, and we were kind of talking earlier because, so what we do for those that are watching, Ann and I will often get on a little early together and just catch up and chit chat about stuff because Ann's in Michigan and I'm in Wisconsin. And so today we were talking about restaurants because Joe and I went out to a restaurant for lunch today. And it's interesting watching the because we were in Minnesota today because I had to go get my glasses. And it's very interesting watching restaurants try and navigate COVID. So when Ann and I got to talking, and then we were like, we were just kind of talking about how hard this is and how, especially for Americans who are used to getting whatever we want. And my husband commented he just wants his cheese fountain and to be left alone. And then that reminded me that when you go to Golden Corral, you get the chocolate fountain and the cheese fountain. And then it's like, what's going to happen to places like Old Country Buffet and Golden Corral, where it's buffet-licious? In the age of COVID, is there still room for buffets? I don't know. And then,
I,
and
I said, I think that the buffet is the water park of food. So,
and that grossed me out because no, it is, and then I started thinking about like water parks just in general, and they gross me out anyway. Ugh! And then I started thinking about
I was like, I kind of expect like in the buffet to find a used Band-Aid in the gravy, you know?
No, you ruined it forever. Oh,
so
sorry.
I wouldn't be. Yeah, so I don't know if buffets are gonna make it through COVID.
Oh, dude, that just grosses me out so much. I have to put my hood on. This is what I do when I watch a scary movie or an awkward thing where you're watching somebody and you're like, no! Oh, yeah. Tina Albright is with us and she's like, no, stop! Sorry.
Yeah.
And honestly, guys, our intention today was not to gross everybody out with our COVID buffet stories, but and actually this is a perfect lead-in because Anna's going to talk to us today about making your own amazing food, growing it yourself, eating it yourself, knowing its source, knowing who's touching it, because anyway. And then we got to talking about Casa Bonita in Denver because Casa Bonita is one of our favorite restaurants. Unfortunately, Casa Bonita is not a buffet. They're currently closed due to the COVID pandemic, but they are planning on reopening because you got to be able to go to Casa Bonita and taste the magic. And if you don't know what Casa Bonita is, just look it up. It's amazing. So
it is amazing.
You're welcome.
If I was going to open a church, it would be like Casa Bonita. I would be the high priestess of Casa Bonita.
Yeah, and you can be tax exempt too. High five. What?
Beautiful.
All right. So the reason I ask again is that because what I have realized about myself in this age of pandemic, and I do believe this is going to happen more often. And if you're interested in knowing more about pandemics and how it works and why we might be actually entering the age of the pandemic, then read the book Deadliest Enemy. It's really good, super smart book about what we're dealing with right now. But what I realized is that I was listening to this book is that I am completely unprepared in any way, shape, or form for any sort of crisis because I can't do anything. I can like paint stuff and I can cobble stuff together. I can build a little bit. I can work all my tools, my power tools and stuff, but I can't, I'm not a good gardener. In fact, I would say I'm the shame of the Brothers family and the Vietas when it comes to my ability to garden. Wait, Tina wants to know if we've already had the cocktails. Girl, no cocktails tonight. Nope. So I haven't even had a cocktail. So, well, I did have a fuel at lunch. It was amazing, but whatever. But yeah, not for hours. So what I realized is that my sister, who is a genius gardener and can, you should see the pillow that she made me. And oh yeah, I'll bring that out later this week. So what I asked Anne, so Joe and I rent a little place in Wisconsin, and we have a really nice side yard that's south facing. That would be a great place for a garden, but I don't know, you know, it's a grassy, weedy sort of area over there. So I was kind of looking for some other options. So Ann talked to me about maybe setting up some cinder block raised beds for my garden. And so I had a bunch of questions, and I thought maybe people that were watching today might be interested in being able to set up gardens like this. So Anna's going to walk us through how to set up a cinder block garden. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, here's a picture. Cinder block gardens, where you basically use cinder blocks to essentially frame out an area that you're going to garden. And there you go. Which is, to me, seems like a good idea, because we rent, we don't own. So I don't know. My landlord has said he does not mind if I put a garden in, but sometimes I think this is a better plan in terms of not tearing up the yard. I don't have a rototiller, anything cool like that. So, Anne, if you don't mind taking us through this and kind of, answering a bunch of questions I've had, that would be amazing.
Sure. I would be happy to, Genny Brothers.
Okay. So for starters, I'm going to just click through this first one. So you and Duncan bought your house, what was that, 5 years ago now? And
2015, yeah.
Yep. So you guys have a nice big backyard. Why did you choose cinder block for your garden?
Well, we have like almost an acre, and it was pretty much an acre of lawn. And the reason why I chose to do raised beds is because I didn't want to use a rototiller to dig up the sod. You get a burst of fertility in your soil when you do that, because you kill everything in it, but then it can make your soil weaker in the long run. So I wanted to actually build raised beds. And I went with cinder block because, one, it's really sturdy. It weathers well. And I liked the idea of having the framed out, 3x6 bed, and then also having the little holes to put things in, other plants in. So I really liked that idea. They are heavy, of course, but they don't rot, so like wood frame. And you can buy really expensive ones that you make your, they give you like a kit. They're gorgeous, but I didn't want to spend that much money. And like you said, for you, you're looking for something temporary. If I decide someday that I don't want to do this anymore, then I got all the cinder block, I'll do something else. I'll build mom and dad their mother-in-law quarters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Okay, so that, yeah. and I would say that sort of versatility I think is a really nice thing. I also like that your third point, that if you're looking at cinder blocks, you can see cinder blocks are full of holes, and you can plant those as well. And I think you have a slide in here that talks a little bit about that, and we'll get to that in just a second. So if I'm going to build a cinder block bed, what do I need?
Well, of course, you're going to need cinder blocks. You're going to need, to start up, the bed that I made is 3 feet by 6 feet. So you're going to need 16 cinder blocks that are 16-inch length by 8 inches wide by 6 inches high. Of course, you can use bigger ones. You can use different ones. I have all types of them, but that's just what I chose to do. And I didn't need to make, like some people need to make taller beds that are higher, because their soil is suspect. They might be in a brownfield area, or they don't know the history of their soil. I didn't need to do that. So my beds aren't particularly tall, because I could use the soil underneath the beds just as easily. But you're going to need those blocks. You need compost. You're going to need a layer of compost. And per bed, you're going to need, at the minimum, about 480 pounds of, I use topsoil. You can use potting soil if you want. It's a lot more expensive. I just use topsoil because I have the compost, and I have my own compost bed, so I can constantly do that. And then also you're going to need some newspaper. So cinder blocks, compost, soil, newspaper.
So, okay, so if I'm setting up this cinder block bed, I put the blocks down first. Is that how I start?
I start out with figuring out where I want the bed to go. I put down a piece of newspaper and I put the first block down, and then I put the next block next to it. And so I have newspaper under every single block, because what that's going to do is it's going to start to kill off your sod, your grass, and you want it to get killed off because you don't want it to come through when you have your garden bed. And also it adds an extra burst of nutrition to your soil, because all that sod and the root system dies out, and then it fertilizes your soil. So you want to have a piece of newspaper under each block, and then you want to layer the space, the actual framed out part, in newspaper as well. You can also use cardboard. I just use newspaper because that's what I had.
So essentially it goes newspaper, and then what goes on top of the newspaper?
Then I do compost, a layer of compost, and then I do the soil.
Okay. Cool. And then now, for instance, go ahead.
No, I did one bed without newspaper because I didn't have any, and I'm still having problems with sod breaking through. So you really want to do the newspaper.
Okay. So like in this squash bed right here, this is a single layer of cinder blocks, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Single layer of cinder blocks, about 480 pounds of soil.
Question for you. You had mentioned one of the reasons that you can get away with doing a single layer of the cinder blocks is that you had mentioned something called a brownfield. Tell me what a brownfield is.
A brownfield is if you buy property where there's been some sort of industrial use or industrial pollution. So if you're building in, say, an urban area like Detroit, or one of a suburb next to an urban area where they've had like heavy industry, you can't be positive that your soil doesn't have some tainted heavy metals in it. And so it's a nice idea to have you might build a bed that's a foot high, and so the plants are pretty much just using that top foot of soil, and they're not getting into the brownfield soil, and that nutrient that can come into the plants. So if you have heavy metals or anything like that, like lead or mercury, it'll go into your plants, and you want to avoid that. I didn't have to worry about that because mine's always been a rural area, so it's really. And also you might have like a super clay sort of soil, which is very hard to drain, so you might build up a taller bed so that you have more drainage, so your root system doesn't drown. So it might be because you're not sure what's in your soil, or because you don't have a nice sand clay loam mix. Maybe you have a more clay mix, so that's another reason why you might do it. Or you might do it because you have a real sandy mix and you need something nutritious. So you might do it because it's polluted, or because your soil isn't as healthy as you want it to be.
Got it. All right, good to know. Okay, so that gives me my how to do it, what I need. And again, this is you took us through that. What to do? You take your newspaper, you compost it, you put your soil on, and then you said number 5, you fill each cinder block hole with soil, so about 80 pounds. Now, is that so? Essentially, you're saying I need about 400 pounds of soil for the bed itself, and another 80 pounds for the cinder block holes themselves, because you can plant in those as well. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Okay. And then like the strawberry bed that I have here, I have a double bed, meaning that instead of being 6 feet long, it's 12 feet long. Okay. Because I wanted more strawberries. And the nice thing about the strawberries is they send out runners. So I put, so they fill the holes for me. So it fills out the whole frame itself. And then they also grow into the holes. So that was the cool thing about that.
And it does it all by itself?
Yeah, that's the nice thing about strawberries, is that once you get them going, they send out these little runners. It looks like above ground roots with little plants on them, and so they'll spread themselves out. So if you have a bed like that's a 3 by 12 bed, 3 feet by 12 feet bed, and you get yourself 10 plants, maybe even as few as 8, within a year or two, it'll be filled with strawberry plants.
Neat. I'm doing that because I love strawberries. I know I'm going to have to decide what I want to plant. So when should I start?
I would start now, because you want to be able to kill the sod. And if you have the rest of the summer and the fall and the winter and into the spring to do that, by the time you start planting, let's see, you're probably in zone 5. So by the time you start planting in early May, the sod will be underneath will be dead. So, you know, I would do it now. When we first moved in, I didn't plant anything the first year. I just built beds the first summer. And so by the time I was ready to plant in the spring, I had my first 15 beds all built. But by then, all the sod had been killed, and it was a fresh, clear bed. So
Nice.
you know, you can do it later, but I would try to get it done before the first frost.
Okay, good to know. And I love this picture because you had talked about, this is a picture of your onion bed. And I also, you had talked about one of the things that you like about cinder blocks is that you can use the holes to plant things. And here you are, you've got onions in the hole. So you've got onions in the bed itself and you have onions on the perimeter. What else do you plant in those perimeter holes?
You know what I do is sometimes I get rabbits and deer, and so a lot of times in the little holes I'll plant marigold seeds because deer, most animals don't like marigolds, and it deters them. Plus, I think they're really pretty. And then when I clean my chicken coop, I pull off all the flowers on the marigolds and I throw those into the chicken coop in the run because they're an antifungal, and they keep like bugs from like deciding that my chicken coop and my chicken coop run is a good place to live. So one, I like them. Two, they kind of dissuade little critters to come and munch on stuff. And three, I use them in my chicken coop. So that's what I usually do. But sometimes I'll put in like bush beans as well, just to replenish the nitrogen in the soil. And then that way and then I just let the beans go to seed and I pick them in the fall and use them in soup. So, you know, it depends on what you want. Yeah.
Okay. And if we were looking at this picture, I've noticed that you do have a decent amount. It looks like, is that barbed wire or mesh around your onions right now?
Yeah, I do have chicken wire. Like I built little cages. They're tall. It's over 5 feet tall because we do have deer that are very fond of gardens. So I just built. Most of them have a little cage around them so that the deer don't get any bright ideas.
Yeah, they're bad. Because Joe, we had to do that with my bird feeders because the deer, I was getting deer jacked all the time. So Joe made a very clever, I would call it a pulley system so that I can pull my feeders up off the ground via the trees. And it's kept the deer and the raccoons out of my feeders. Now I just got to figure out how to keep the squirrels out of there, but I probably won't. It's Cousin Jeanette, and Cousin Jeanette says, can I come up and do a tour? I have a far different growing climate. And then she said, oops, climate. And then Pat has chicken wire in front of his band. My God.
Oh, nice.
Pat is obviously playing in the wrong bars. What the hell?
Yeah, exactly. Dang, you play some tough places.
Now, Jeanette, I'm a little bit bummed because this summer we were supposed to hang out this summer. You and Sia were supposed to come up and meet me in Michigan so that we could all go and farm on Ann's farm. So hopefully when we get COVID clear, we'll be able to do that because I think it would be so much fun to get all the women together, all the girl cousins together, and have some fun. So that would be fantastic.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I know it's you have a much warmer climate, Jeanette. You're down south, so yeah.
Yeah, she can start putting her peas in February.
No, see that's that. So what you need to do, Jeanette, is you need to call your cousin and get a consultation on your so because that's pretty much what I'm doing right now. So, all right, so red clay. That's what Jeanette said. She's dealing with red clay. So
yeah, nice high raised beds.
Like 10 cinder blocks high. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So in terms of cost, Ann Brothers, how much will it cost me to get started with all this?
Well, if you are doing the cinder block like I did and buying your soil, you know, getting free newspaper, it's going to cost you about $40 per bed, which is pretty good. I mean, you can buy beautiful kits for like, you know, hundreds of dollars per, and that's just for the bed itself. So this is a good price. Like I said, I have my own compost system, so I don't have to buy compost. But if you do have to buy the compost as well, and I highly recommend that you start your beds out with compost, it's probably going to cost you about $60. Now, if you're going to make more than like 5 beds, you might want to consider getting like bulk soil and bulk compost from like a nursery, and they'll just come and back up a big old dump truck full of dirt and compost, and then you haul it around yourself. It's not as convenient as the bags, but it is cheaper. So I leave that up to you.
So let me ask you this, and this is one of the, because I don't actually know how many beds I'm going to do. How much space should one have between beds?
Enough to run your lawnmower between them.
Good to know. All right. So about, we'll say 2 feet, because I think I have a 20-inch wide lawnmower. All right. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, you're going to want enough space to run your lawnmower between them. Unless, you want to do that whole thing where you dig up all around them and put in gravel, which you probably don't want to do because you're a renter. So enough to run your lawnmower through.
Probably not. So, all right. So that's not, and the thing is, that's not that much money. I could totally afford to do that. So
yeah.
So yeah. All right, cool. And again, we're just looking at this picture here. We're showing with all of your chicken wire, and you've got looks like you have some trellises in there as well. And
I do, because I grow I have three types of beans. Two of them are a pole bean, which means they like to climb, and then one is a bush bean, which means it stays close to the ground. So I've talked to several people who are actual farmers, and they would never grow pole beans because it's not as convenient, but I think they're super pretty. I just love the big tall, and I like it in my garden to have that levels going up. So I just love them. But I do grow a bunch of bush beans too, because they're just so easy.
Cool. Very cool. And we're looking at one of your which are those flowers in this bed right here?
Yeah, that's my nasturtium bed. It's probably going to be something else next year, but I really like nasturtiums, and they're edible. So if you want to put them on your salads and stuff, I just think they're really pretty. So that's just, I have nasturtiums and zinnias in there. Both of those are annuals. They're not perennials. So like I said, next year, I'm probably going to put some sort of perennial in there so I don't have to keep reseeding it. But, I have this one area around, we only have one tree in our yard. It's a big silver maple. And so I decided to make that my flower garden area, because it's a place where I'd want to sit and read. And, if we had company, then we could sit under the tree. So I just thought I'd make that my flower bed area. And it's easier to find. Like vegetables, they need as much sun as possible. But flowers, you can find ones that like half shade or half sun. So I just thought it would be pretty to make that my flower area.
Now, do you rotate your beds in terms of what you grow in the beds?
Yes, I do. I have a 3-year rotation. First year, I grow some sort of, fruiting vegetable, like maybe tomatoes or squash or zucchini, peas, something that fruits. Peas are actually a little bit different. They're a legume, and they're a good nitrogen builder. So you can put those in the bean category if you wanted to. But yeah, so I usually grow something that fruits, something that will take a lot from the soil. The next year I grow beans, because beans are a nitrogen fixer. They put nitrogen back into the soil. So do peas. So the second year they're beans, and then the third year I grow nothing in them. So that's so it's a 3-year rotation. Some people do a 4-year rotation. They'll do 2 years of vegetables and maybe a year of beans, and then a fallow year. I just find that 3 years with the number of beds that I have, it's just easy to do. I'm able to plant all the different types of vegetables I want to grow with the number that I have in a 3-year rotation.
Now, when you say fallow, what are you talking about?
Some people will, when I mean fallow, I don't plant anything in it. I just keep in a bunch of compost directly from my chicken coop. So chicken poop is high in nitrogen, which means they call it hot. So you don't want to, if you put chicken poop on your garden bed, you don't want to grow anything in it for about a year, because it will burn your seeds. It'll burn your plants. So I pile them high with compost directly from my chicken coop, because they have a year to sit, so they get nice and nutritious again. And then the next summer I plant of some sort of fruiting vegetable in there. So most of my compost, like when I take it out of my chicken run, it goes into my compost bins for a year, and then the next spring, I'll put that compost on all my beds to start them out, because it's had time to cool. So
I get it.
If you're gonna put animal poop on your garden beds, you want to go with cow poop. It can go directly from the cow into the bed because they have all those stomachs, so it gets all nice and broken down. Plus, they're herbivores. Chickens are omnivores. We're omnivores. Pigs are omnivores. We have hot poop. We have lots of nitrogen in it, so it has to have some time to cool.
Makes sense. Tina had a comment about your staging. She said it's levels for the aesthetic, and I would agree. It looks lovely.
Exactly.
Tina gets it. Tina gets it.
She gets it.
Okay, and again, that talk about how raised beds are great if you don't have great soil, and I don't think I have great soil. I got all kinds of weird stuff growing out of my yard, so this would be perfect for somebody like me who's just a lowly renter. And again, I love this slide you did on why raised beds. If you want to talk us through that, go for it.
Well, I read a lot about this before I started doing raised beds. I did my first raised beds when I was a renter living in Ypsilanti. One of the things when you have a great big garden, you have to walk through the garden, and when you walk through, you press down your soil. It compresses the soil and compresses the root systems, which isn't good for them. So the raised bed allows you to walk around the entire bed without compressing the soil where the plants are. You get a healthier soil because if you rototill, you kill everything in the soil, the worms, the microbes, the rhizomes, everything in the soil, which gives you a real burst of fertility for that first season and then makes your soil really nutrient poor the next number of seasons. So this way you never run a rototiller. In fact, you kill the sod so it gives you even more nutrients. So it gives you a healthier soil. It's much easier to control the weeds because I can tell you, like, when you look at a great big garden, you're like, oh my God, I got to weed that thing. But when you're looking at one bed at a time, where it's only, 6 by 8 bed, you're like, oh, I can weed this in no time. And then I do a crowding system. So when I put plants in, like my tomato beds might have 8 plants in it, which is a lot for a 3 by 6 bed, but they crowd each other and then they kill out the weeds. So it's easier to crowd and kill out the weeds, but you're still give your root system plenty of room. Okay. And then, of course, like I said, they're easier to maintain because and a cinder block bed, like the ground shifts. And if you have like metal or wood beds and the ground is shifting, that whole bed will shift. But if you have a cinder block bed, only the one cinder block will shift. So it's easier to put them back together.
Okay, that's a great thought. I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, you wouldn't have that breakdown like you have with wood, especially in a nice moist climate like southeastern Michigan. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And then if one of the cinder blocks like falls apart for some reason, it's super easy to replace. So
just swap it out. Okay. All right. And then I noticed that you added a couple of books to your presentation. Tell me about these 2 books.
Okay, so the first book is a great book. It's the Vegetable Gardener's Bible, and he talks about the crowding technique, and then he's also big on raised garden beds as well, and he has his reasons for both of those. So that's one of the things. And then the rest of the book is literally an encyclopedia of vegetables. When to plant them, how to know that they're doing well, how to harvest them. It's just a great. If you have never gardened before, get yourself this book because it just gives you all kinds of helpful hints. And like sometimes I'm like, last year was the first year I grew potatoes. I'm like, so I'm just like, oh, potatoes. And then he gives you all this, it's only like 4 pages, read about potatoes. I'm like, when they go in, what they should look like, when you should pick them, blah, blah, all this great information. So he has some great techniques for setting up the garden and then how to take care of what you're growing.
That's super cool.
It is.
Monica Hislop has a comment. She says, I have a brown thumb. Plants see me and run. These gardens look so beautiful. Nice work. So I'm going to challenge you, Monica. I'm going to have a garden next year because, again, I am the shame of my family when it comes to gardening. So if I can do it, you can do it. So start out with 1. Go back and watch this entire video. Figure out how to do it. And then get out there, girl, because we're going to grow our own gardens this year. This is going to happen. So I'm not. My suggestion
My suggestion is to start with a runner bean that you like, or a bush bean that you like. Like green beans. If you like green beans, start out by growing green beans. One, they're super easy to grow. You don't have to start them inside. You can start them outside. They have nice big fat leaves, so they can grow in in half shade. And once you get tired of them, you just let them go to seed, and then you pick them in the fall and shuck them, and you have all these beans for soup. And they're just they're hard to kill.
All right, and then the second book that you have here, The Urban Homestead. Tell me about that book.
Yeah, I got this book when I was still living in Ypsilanti. And again, I love this book because one, he really talks about composting, which I think is really important, raised beds. And it's actually a couple. They talk a lot about building raised beds with whatever you have, because I chose cinder blocks and I have my reasons, but they might not be your reasons for wanting a raised bed. And you can use any material you want. You can be way more, found object, or you can build these grandiose beds. So it's entirely up to you. But they talk about, also using the importance of raised beds and the importance of crowding your plants, which, some people would think was it's like, oh, you shouldn't do that. I'm like, yes, you should, unless you want to weed more. Oh, and they also talk about mulch. Mulch is a big deal as well. So both really good books for beginners. And the second one especially is a really good book for somebody who's a renter or somebody who has a very small space.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't say my space is small. I can easily probably get 3 beds in that side yard. And the reason I'm looking at that particular space is because it gets such great sun, pretty much continuous sun throughout the day in the summertime, because it's south facing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very important. Yeah, especially if you want to grow things like tomatoes, anything that has big fruit on it. And they have tiny leaves. Tomatoes have tiny little leaves. So yeah, the more sun, the better.
Okay. Monica has another comment. She said, I just challenged her to start a garden. And she said, I'm not that sadistic. The plant gods will send Audrey 2 on my ass. Fair enough. I love it. So, God, that's a ton of information, and I got way more than I bargained for when I asked you to do this, and I appreciate that because, like I said, for those of you that missed our conversation when we started today, we were talking about restaurants and how COVID has affected the restaurant industry, how it's affecting distribution of grocery, and like I said, I think we are living in the age of the pandemic now for various reasons. Again, read the book Deadliest Enemy if you'd like to know what I'm talking about, and how important it is probably going to be for folks to kind of figure out how to feed themselves in some way, shape, or form. And we were just kind of talking about how absolutely inept I am at that. And so, yeah, I would kind of like to start doing some things that are going to help, at least make me a little more self-sufficient. So,
also, if you're looking for self-sufficiency, grow beans. Beans are awesome. Beans, they're super. You don't have to worry about refrigerators or freezers or anything like that. Once they're dry, you put them in a jar. Boom. So, plus, like I said, they're easy to grow. Get a lot of bang for your buck. They're very nutritious, and whenever I see like shows about the apocalypse and they're all growing tomatoes, I'm like, no. Beans and corn. What did the Native Americans live on? Beans and corn and squash. Ugh.
Yeah. Anyway. And you have all of those, because I know you one of the slides today, I think it was I want to say it's this one, right? One of these. Oh, that one right there. There's your squash bed right there. So yeah, squash bed. Yeah. So yes. Jeanette, we're glad you're watching. I miss you. Joe and I were super bummed that we didn't get a chance to meet you guys in Milwaukee this year, because that was the funnest. So Monica wants to know like legume beans, and you were talking about like green beans and as being.
Yeah, you can grow. I grow a French green bean, because I have to admit, Jenny, here's a secret. I'm not a big vegetable person. I mean, I eat a ton of vegetables. That's for somebody who's not a vegetable person.
No, because when we were kids and I would eat all of your food, I mean, I would always eat all your vegetables because you never did. Yeah. That's why I always thought it was so funny that you became this vegetable farmer. I'm like, look at this girl grow these vegetables. I'm like, does Anne even eat vegetables? So, but you do a good job. Like zucchini is very good, and you're really good about incorporating those things. I mean, the times that I've hung out with you and eaten dinner with you, I mean, you're a great cook, and I don't feel like I want to die after I eat because everything is so delicious and nutritious, and most of it came out of your garden. So
Yeah. So so green beans, I do a French green bean that it's a real thin green bean, which I like. I like to eat them roasted from the oven. And then I do two other beans that you can eat fresh. One is called a baka bean, which is an older heirloom kind. And I usually don't eat those fresh. I just let them dry. They make this big fat brown bean that's lovely in soup. And then I do the Hidatsa shield bean, which is actually a Native American bean that was they think it first showed up in North Dakota. So amazingly beautiful brown and white kind of bean. And the thing is, when you grow like beans and dry them, and in fact, you don't have to dry them, just dry in the vine. When you grow them and they dry, and then you put them in foods, you're like, oh my gosh, these beans actually taste like something, not just, So that's the nice thing. So those are the three beans I grow. Like I said, two of them are a runner bean, or they go up a pole, and the other one is a bush bean. But you can grow any type you like. That's the nice thing about the Vegetable Garden Bible, is that they talk about different beans. And then part of it is that, I'm not sure where Monica lives now, but you might want to look for something based on your region. So if you are in Atlanta, they're going to grow different beans than I would grow in Michigan. Or if you're in California, you want to look for something that's probably something based in Italy, because it has a very similar climate to like the Tuscany region. So you might want to do a little research there and see what kind of beans are going to grow in my region. So there you go.
all right, so Tina is asking for pictures of the beans, and so what I'm going to do, so Monica Ann is growing beans. She would be growing stuff in California, and then Tina wants some information on pictures. So
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and look at them.
I was going to say I can do that. I can put them on our Facebook page.
Okay, and so one of the things I found real quick here, it's bush beans versus pole beans. I'm going to throw that picture up here real quick. I'll throw that on, and that will just take me a quick second here. I'm going to go to the brand. I'm going to do an overlay, and
see, and then this picture is the picture of my kitties. This is what they do when I'm in the garden.
They are very good helpers. So, Tina, to answer your question real quick, if you want to know what's what, I'm going to take you down real quick. So, this would be a pole bean right here, and that would be like I don't know, I don't want to call it the run-of-the-mill variety green bean. And then this is what a bush bean looks like, just in terms of how they look in terms of plants. So, Anne, give me an example. Give me a name of a bush bean.
Oh gosh, like I said, the kind that I do is this French green bean. Let me see what my book has to say. I went with one of the places that I get my seeds from is Seed Saver, out of Seed Saver Exchange, which is a heirloom seed company out of Decorah, Iowa.
Okay.
And they have great stuff because they're really good about putting the region where they originated. So they're really nice about finding you things that are might be good for your region. So let's see. Just says bush beans. Sorry.
All right. So I've got a picture. I'm going to do that overlay real quick.
When you get your seed packet, on the back, on the front, it'll tell you what kind of bean it is. And if you look on the back, and it'll give you a bunch of descriptions like when to plant it, how deep to plant it, that sort of thing. And it'll tell you if it's a runner or a pole bean, which is the same thing, or a bush bean. Okay. I would suggest, if it's your first time, start with a bush bean, because that way you don't have to worry about building trellises.
Okay. So this is a French green bean right here. Tina, I hope we are giving you what you're looking for here. So in terms of what kind of bean is that, that's a French green bean. You had mentioned some other type of bean, and you gave me a name of a bean just a second ago, and I missed it.
Yeah. One of them is the Baca bean, B-A-C-A bean. And they have a big yellow pod. And then there's also the Hidatsa shield figure bean, which is a Native American bean.
Say that one more time.
Hidatsa shield figure.
How do you spell that?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Shield and figure, just like you'd think. And then Hidatsa, I want to say it's Hiedsta, but I'm not positive. It's a little fuzzy.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking. Oh, here it is. That one right there. That's exactly what I was looking for. So it's give me 2 seconds here. So it's a heritage bean. They talk about it. And I'm just grabbing a picture for you real quick. Oops, it's not going to let me grab that picture. But it almost resembles a pinto bean once it's.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It's got a bigger pattern than a pinto bean. Pinto bean is a smaller brown and white pattern. And this reminds me kind of like of a Jersey cow. It's got this
really
bigger,
pretty bean.
They're super pretty. Yeah, they're really, really pretty beans. And they I have stories about, Native Americans growing the beans on the corn to use this was the bean.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, the Hidasa, so it's an HID ATSA. I got it right here. And really, I'm just gonna do a quick, like I said, I'm just really, guys, I'm sorry I'm distracted. I am just trying to grab a quick picture for people to look at so they have a kind of a mental model of what we're talking about here. All right. So they don't really have a lot of pictures of the beans in the pod. Oh, here we go. It's like you said, it's more of a yellow bean.
Mm-hmm. And both of those are beans that you can eat, early, like if you want to eat them in the pod, like a green bean. I just never do because I'm not that excited about green beans. But I am excited about eating the beans later on. Plus, I got to tell you, in the summer, once your tomatoes come in, you spend so much time picking and processing tomatoes that it's just so nice to see the beans out there like getting fat and healthy and knowing that you don't have to worry about them until like October, because there are plenty of times I'm like, oh my gosh, I just picked 50 tomatoes and I got them, you're making like freezing tomatoes and making sauce and so it's just really nice to like those beans. I don't have to worry about them. Where
they're going to be just fine. All right, so these are the Hidatsa beans that Ann was talking about. So you can see them in their husk, and then you can see the bean right next to it. So if you're interested in starting that and going after those sorts of beans, you can do that. And again, if you're interested, you guys, and I don't know if you're interested and you'd like to, maybe get a little bit more information from Ann on this, you guys feel free to email us. Our email's right there, smartdumbfun@gmail.com. And you got some knowledge, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So Tina says she's growing the bush green bean, so very good. And Ann's got funky beans, so there you go.
I just, there you go.
There you go.
They taste good. That's why I like them. They're easy to grow and they taste good. So that's like, you work so hard in your garden. I'm like, I really do very little. They do all of the photosynthesis. I just try to keep the weeds back and remember to pick them, because when I first started gardening, it was strictly because I liked the process of it. And if it was really up to me, I'd eat like maybe 20 tomatoes and that'd be it. I just like, is there a chili dog tree somewhere? So
and the good news is people are going to want to buy your beans and they're going to want to buy your tomatoes. So next summer when we start Ann's clever fruit and vegetable stand, you can drive by and put your money in the can and take some tomatoes or potatoes or Hidasta beans or all kinds of good stuff. So yeah, well, Ann Brothers, we have chatted for 45 minutes about this awesome topic. So I believe I am ready.
Sorry, everybody, your ears hurt.
I am ready to now sustain myself with my own garden instead of relying on Golden Corral to feed me. Even though I don't foresee being able to grow my own chocolate fountain, which is probably a good thing. That's not good for me. And it's not good for me, because one time when I was at Golden Corral and I watched some kid just dip his hand into the chocolate fountain and go in, and that was like, that might have broken me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the water slide of the food world. Yeah, ew, gross. Gross.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to talk about that
The good
one
thing
time
is
my
that
friend got cryptosporidium at a water park. That's another great story. That's a fun story. That's a parasite
just
for those
try
of
to
you playing at
remember
home.
to start small. Don't beat yourself up if things don't live, and start small and start with something you like. I started
Okay.
with tomatoes in pots because I liked tomatoes. I knew I was going to eat them. So
well, my mint
there.
plant is doing very well, and my basil plant is doing very well this summer. So I have 2 plants.
Excellent.
And I've been using the mint for my mojitos. I decided that I wanted mint for my mojitos, which has been awesome, and then basil so that I can put in whatever I want. So a basil mojito.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go. So
Little basil goes a long way. So.
Speaking of drinking, Tina was asking us if we were drinking. Thursday, it's Bar Thursday tomorrow. Big doings. Tomorrow, Ann and I will be enjoying Moscow Mules, and we will also be talking about a fabulous summer movie, the movie Crawl, which is currently on Prime, Amazon Prime. If you want to get a jump and watch Crawl ahead of time, you won't get smarter watching this movie, and that's fine. Okay.
And that's fine.
That's
sometimes
fine.
you just need to feel better about yourself.
Totally.
By watching things that are dumber.
Yes. So this is a good one. Anyway, join us tomorrow, you guys. We're going to come back same time. We came back late today because we were running around all day today. Ann was picking garlic. I was running around getting my new glasses. But tomorrow, you guys, we will be back at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. Does that work for you, man? I didn't even ask. I just assumed it was.
That's perfectly fine.
And
no,
we'll
awesome.
be drinking Moscow Mules, and we'll be talking about the movie Crawl. So join us for Bar Thursday tomorrow. So today was smart stuff. Tomorrow, you guys, we were talking about dumb stuff, without a doubt. Thanks again for joining us, everybody. You're amazing. Ann, thank you so much for sharing your fantastic gardening knowledge with the entire world. So well done. All right. Thanks, you guys. Have a great day.
Bye.